Your life didn't begin at birth, and it certainly isn't unfolding by random chance. Every step you take, every emotion you feel, and every desire that stirs within you is part of a much greater design crafted not by fate nor by coincidence, but by a consciousness so vast, ancient, and wise that it holds the memory of your soul across lifetimes. There is a place, though place is too simple a word, that holds the blueprint of every thought, every intention, every karmic echo of all beings who have ever lived. It is a realm of stillness so subtle that few ever notice it, so delicate, so deeply woven into the fabric of reality that it escapes the noise of the everyday mind. But you've touched it before. You've felt it in the deep silence of meditation, in the strange familiarity of déjà vu, in dreams that feel more real than waking life, in the moments when time feels like it bends and a memory not your own stirs in your heart. The ancient sages called it Akasha. The mystics sensed it through intuition. Today, many know it as the Akashic Records. But don't mistake this for a mystical fantasy or a New Age idea. This isn't fiction. This is the architecture of your soul's journey. And once you become aware of it, once you remember, you will never see yourself the same way again. Sometimes you feel as if you've been dropped into the middle of a story, unsure of how it began or where it's heading. That feeling is real. It's not confusion, it's remembrance. A knowing that your soul has lived many times before, and that nothing from those lives has been lost. There is a record, a silent, sacred memory that stretches beyond lifetimes, whispered across continents, cultures, and centuries. The Akashic Records. They are not written in books. They are not bound by space or time. They are not physical. And yet they hold the truth of who you are, who you've been, and who you're becoming. They are neither confined within an antiquated structure, nor interred underground. They reside in a plane transcending time and space, an immaterial realm of consciousness that functions as a spiritual repository. Envision a vibrating repository that preserves not just your actions, but also your thoughts, feelings, intentions, every decision you have ever made, every lesson you were meant to learn, every lifetime you have experienced, and moreover encompasses every individual, every soul, in every experience. This is not an exclusive concept. This is the landscape of consciousness itself. The name Akashic derives from the Sanskrit word Akasha, signifying ether or spirit. The fifth element in traditional Indian cosmology, surpassing earth, water, fire, and air, symbolizes the subtle energetic essence from whence all entities originate. To the ancients, Akasha was not merely a lyrical concept. It was the imperceptible link uniting everything of existence, the medium through which divine intelligence manifests, and the records represent the memories of that medium. This is not a specialized area of metaphysics. This concept is present in nearly all mystical traditions. The Hebrews referred to the Book of Life. The ancient Egyptians held a belief in a repository of records. In Islam, there exists Alawh al-Mahfuz, the preserved tablet that documents all events. In contemporary Western esotericism, intellectuals such as Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner have discussed a spiritual memory field that beyond the confines of human sensory perception. They were not creating it, they were recalling it. If you have ever contemplated why certain individuals appear to possess innate wisdom, or why you have inexplicable anxieties, extraordinary talents, or profound emotional responses that seem to transcend your current existence, you are not delusional. You are perceiving reverberations from the archives. You transcend your present conditions. You are a being embodying multiple layers of experience. Those layers are not arbitrary. They are patterns integral to a broader curriculum that your soul consented to investigate. However, until you recognize those patterns, they continue to manifest unknowingly, perpetuating throughout lifetimes. This is when the records transcend mere notion. They transform into a key, a map, and a compass guiding you back to your essence. Within them lie answers. It pertains not alone to your past identity, but also to your evolving self. Insights await acknowledgement, lessons pending integration, and a fact that eludes most individuals entirely. Your goal is not a construct of your imagination, it is a recollection. Certain truths cannot be disclosed here, yet they are too significant to conceal. Register for Insights Academy at the link in the description to obtain a complimentary digital edition of the Kybalion while supplies last. Here is what they will not disclose to you. The records are accessible, they are merely inconspicuous. The majority of individuals do not attempt to access them, not due to a lack of capability, but because they were never informed of its possibility. They were instructed that knowledge resides in books, that authority exists within institutions, and that answers must originate externally. However, the records indicate a different conclusion. It is asserted that the pinnacle of knowledge is not acquired, but rather retrieved. One need not be a guru or a psychic to access this insight. One must attain sufficient tranquility to perceive the echoes that have long resided within oneself. The Akashic field does not preferentially support the elite. It reacts to intention, honesty, and preparedness. The inquiry is not whether you can access the records. The inquiry is what transpires when you proceed. Long before the phrase Akashic Records was established, there existed those who possessed knowledge of it. Not theoretically, but via actual experience. Visionaries, mystics, seers, and sages who accessed realms beyond the veil and returned with messages inscribed in light, not ink. They refrained from labeling it a record, as what they observed did not constitute language. It was truth in its most unadulterated and resonant form. Across continents and civilizations, they spoke of a location, if it could be termed as such, where the memories of the soul were preserved, safeguarded not by barriers but by frequency. Those who attained it did not perceive it visually, they sensed it profoundly. The Vedic rishis of ancient India described the Akasha as the fundamental essence of all existence, the source of all form and intellect. In their perspective, nothing was ever genuinely lost. It effortlessly reverted to Akasha, akin to a ripple receding into the ocean. Tibetan mystics designated this area as the mind stream, a continuum of consciousness that surpasses individual incarnations. The Druids, Egyptians, Gnostics, and Mayans each have distinct nomenclature, languages, and symbols, yet share the understanding of an invisible realm that retains all knowledge. What became of this knowledge? It did not vanish. It was deconstructed, marginalized, and reclassified as superstition by institutions that apprehended its ramifications. If the soul possesses memory, then the self transcends nationality, religion, and biology. If the documents are authentic, then authority must be intrinsic, not externally enforced. That constitutes a perilous notion for systems predicated on control. During colonialism, numerous indigenous nations possessing oral traditions of soul memory were ruthlessly suppressed. Holy rituals that facilitated access to the Akasha's intuitive conduits were prohibited, ridiculed, or supplanted. The incineration of historic libraries, the vilification of pagan traditions, and the revision of spiritual history were all components of a singular endeavor to disrupt the link between humanity and the knowledge that transcends the five senses. Even in the contemporary era of rationalism, the concept of the Akashic Records is sometimes regarded as pseudoscience or fiction. Nevertheless, those same skeptics are unable to elucidate why youngsters recall former lifetimes, why individuals who have never encountered one another can share identical dreams, or why ancient literature from many civilizations articulate remarkably similar accounts of soul memory. The evidence exists. Nonetheless, it does not align with the narrative. A society predicated on consumption and compliance cannot operate if its individuals begin to inquire, who was I prior to this? What if the narrative I received is incomplete? Consequently, you were presented with a narrative asserting that your identity is defined by your name, occupation, ethnicity, and gender. Your history commences with your birth certificate and concludes with your death certificate. All other matters folk narratives. However, behind that narrative, the preceding one has been silently awaiting. The one encapsulated in dreams that eluded explanation. The voice murmured at instances of tranquility when the clamor of the world diminishes, allowing you to discern your own understanding. This is not concerned with supplanting religion, demonstrating a thesis, or asserting esoteric knowledge. It pertains to commemoration. It concerns the reclamation of a truth that was usurped not alone via violence, but also by derision, diversion, and amnesia. The Akashic Records are not a recent phenomenon. They are incomprehensibly ancient. What is novel is that an increasing number of individuals are becoming aware of them once more. Perhaps that is the reason for your presence. Not to acquire novel knowledge, but to recall something eternal. A knowledge originally had by your ancestors before it was stripped from their speech. Something your soul has consistently endeavored to reveal to you. Upon recognizing that history is not solely documented in text, but also in energy frequency, and within oneself, one starts to reclaim the narrative that no one else can articulate for them. A library card is not required to access the Akashic Records. Institutional approval, a formal degree, or a spiritual hierarchy is unnecessary. The records were never intended for ownership or protection. They were intended to be experienced, recalled, and embraced. This distinguishes them from all other sources of knowledge. They react not to intellect but to frequency. They are not read with one's eyes. You concur with them, you attune to them. Your awareness transitions into a condition where the static dissipates, allowing the signal to become discernible. Individuals have engaged in this practice for millennia, even in the absence of a designated term. It occurs during profound meditation in altered levels of consciousness and in dreams that appear to reveal past lives or repressed memories. It may occur spontaneously during periods of morning profound delight or instances of utter tranquility. The entry point remains constant: existence. One cannot forcefully intrude upon the records. You yield to them. You yield to a state of awareness that is profoundly calm and sincere, aligning your energy with the very frequency of truth. Mystics and sages frequently refer to the records as a vibrating field. Their content does not conform to a language with which you are familiar. It is neither sentences nor paragraphs. It is knowledge. It is resonance. Individuals occasionally depict the records as an expansive library or an antique temple replete with scrolls and illumination. Others perceive it as colors, sounds, or symbols that elude verbal expression, yet resonate emotionally. That is the essential element. The records do not engage your rational intellect. They communicate directly with the soul. Contemporary spiritual practitioners have devised techniques for purposefully accessing this realm. Some individuals utilize guided meditations or prayers, such as the Pathway Prayer, which was popularized by Linda Howe. Others retrieve the records via automatic writing, enabling the subconscious to interpret what the conscious mind has yet to comprehend. Breathwork, plant medicine, lucid dreaming, and astral projection have functioned as portals for individuals ready to investigate the profound aspects of consciousness. No singular method is universally applicable. The aim supersedes the technique. Intent is paramount. Searching the documents for evidence, authority, or amusement will likely yield no results. However, if you engage with respect, inquisitiveness, and an openness to transformation, the field reciprocates. It is not invariably comfortable. The records do not enhance your self-esteem. They reveal patterns, fact cycles you have perpetuated through lifetimes, and scars you have borne longer than your own identity. However, they also reveal your latent primordial power poised to be recalled. They provide elucidation in areas where you have experienced confusion for years. They repeatedly convey the same message. You possess greater potential than what has been conveyed to you. It is remarkable that numerous individuals have accessed the documents unknowingly. The instinctive awareness that prevented you from making an unwise choice, the peculiar instance when you anticipated an individual's utterance prior to its articulation, the inexplicable attraction to a location, an individual, or a direction. These are not mere coincidences. They are reverberations, insights through the shroud. Your soul endeavors to communicate amidst the cacophony of a world engineered to divert your attention. Accessing the Akashic Records does not pertain to evading this reality. It pertains to manifesting your complete identity in this world. It does not serve as a means to evade reality. It is a method to perceive reality distinctly beyond the illusion and conditioning down to the essence. Accessing the records entails more than mere recollection of one's identity. You recall your intended identity upon arrival. That type of memory is not passive. It evokes emotion. It alters your approach to navigating life. It transforms your reactions to difficulties, your perceptions of people, and the narrative of your own experiences. Once you have experienced the infinite and recognized your position within it, no argument can persuade you that you are insignificant, flawed, or helpless again. You arrived here with purpose. You did not arrive on this planet as an unformed entity, arbitrarily placed in a tumultuous environment. You arrived with a blueprint, a design at the soul level, formed by numerous lifetimes of experience, intention, and consequence. The Akashic Records contain that blueprint. They encompass more than merely details about your past identity. They delineate the energy remnants of past events referred to by some as karma and by others as soul memory. What is fundamentally the spiritual framework of your development, karma has been misinterpreted by numerous individuals. It is not a kind of punishment. It is not celestial punishment for wrongdoing. Karma constitutes memory. It is momentum. It is energy resonating ahead, pursuing resolution, equilibrium, and development. Consider it an incomplete chord requiring resolution. Having wronged someone in a previous life may instill a profound desire to safeguard others in this existence. If you have suppressed your truth for years, you may now feel an urge to articulate it despite your voice trembling. These features are not arbitrary. They are threads, emotional and energy patterns interwoven across lives, establishing continuity in the narrative of your soul. Additionally, there exist soul contracts. These are not inflexible scripts, but rather accords established before the incarnation. Engagements to encounter specific individuals, confront special obstacles, or undergo distinct learning. The detrimental connection, the intractable parent, the mentor who emerged at the opportune moment. These occurrences are not invariably accidental. They may constitute a more profound compact, a reciprocal accord aimed at fostering growth in one another, regardless of the challenges involved. The Akashic Records permit us to perceive these contracts not to evade suffering, but to comprehend its significance. This is the reason the records are not merely warehouses of information. They are reflections of metamorphosis. Accessing your soul's blueprint alters your perception of your challenges. You cease inquiring, "Why is this occurring to me?" Commence inquiring, "What lesson does this impart?" You start to observe the recurring patterns, the identical lesson manifesting in several forms. A similar type of heartbreak, the identical apprehension, the identical self-sabotage. Upon recognizing the pattern, you acquire the ability to alter it. Awareness disrupts the cycle, and a choice made with complete consciousness serves as the catalyst for transformation. There is an inherent sanctity in perceiving your talents from the perspective of the records. Discussions regarding past lives frequently emphasize injuries. However, wisdom also journeys. Talents, and even spiritual abilities can transcend boundaries. The enigmatic attraction to curing, instructing, or creating. It may not be novel. It may be an endeavor your soul has been perfecting for numerous lives. The records assist in recalling not just the origin of the suffering, but also the source of strength. Comprehending your soul blueprint also eliminates comparison. Upon recognizing that each individual follows a distinct evolutionary trajectory, the necessity to conform to another's chronology vanishes. You commence to respect your own process. Cease your haste. Cease the act of assigning blame. You begin to perceive your issues not as impediments, but as catalysts. The Akashic Records disclose the soul's curriculum, and upon recognizing this, even your most significant defeats may be perceived as sacred responsibilities. However, the most emancipating truth of all, your blueprint is adaptable. The past may influence the present, but it does not confine it. Karma is not a perpetual condemnation. Soul contracts are subject to modification. Patterns may be disrupted. This pertains not to determinism, but to consciousness. The records do not bind you to a predetermined destiny. They provide you with a map. However, you ultimately select the course of action. You continue to possess the pen. In every moment, you are either reiterating an established pattern or commencing an altogether new cycle. When you inquire about your mission, you are not anticipating the answer to materialize from the heavens. You are urged to recall what your spirit inherently understands. The plan has always resided within you. The records are fundamentally the key to its decryption. For the majority, the concept of the Akashic Records appears to be merely poetic, an entity pertaining to the realm of mysticism and metaphysics, a reassuring metaphor for individuals who hold faith in a higher power. What if it is not merely a metaphor? What if the spiritual library described by ancient sages is now being partially understood by modern science through the frameworks of energy fields, quantum theory, and consciousness studies, which contest our previous notions of reality? Mainstream science has predominantly disregarded the Akashic Records for a reason. They do not conform seamlessly to the materialist perspective. The data cannot be examined under a microscope, measured with a ruler, or quantified in a laboratory setting. However, awareness encompassing thoughts, dreams, and memories eludes quantification. Nevertheless, you are aware of their existence. The documents may lack a physical form, yet the internet signal facilitating your current reading is also intangible. Unseen does not equate to unreal. Physicists have long understood that reality is not as concrete as it seems. At the quantum level, all entities are energy oscillating, interrelated, and dynamic. What we recognize as form is merely a compact configuration of frequencies. Information may constitute the fundamental basis of the universe, neither substance nor energy. Data. This is where the concept of a repository of recorded data transcends mere mysticism. It transforms into a plausible representation of reality. The late Ervin Laszlo, a systems philosopher and two-time Nobel Peace Prize finalist, proposed the concept of the Akashic field as a global information field that underpins all of creation. His hypothesis posits that the universe is not a mere accident, but a coherent system governed by information contained within the Akashic field. He did not derive this from ancient manuscripts. He identified similarities between avant-garde science and the enduring insights of spiritual traditions. For him, the Akashic Records were not a mere illusion. They represented a scientific inevitability awaiting comprehension. The holographic universe theory is advocated by scientists such as David Bohm and Carl Pribram. It posits that the cosmos operates as a hologram with each segment encompassing the entirety. This implies that information is perpetually embedded in all locations. Each cell in your body contains the complete representation of your genetic code. Each point in the field may encapsulate the memory of every time, every existence, and every potentiality. Does this resonate with you? These hypotheses do not substantiate the Akashic Records in a conventional manner. Nonetheless, they do facilitate exploration. They contest the falsehood that we are isolated, distinct entities within a lifeless, mechanical cosmos. Rather, they indicate something significantly more personal, a universe intricately interlaced with intellect, recollection, and connectivity, a field that retains memory, a cosmos that comprehends itself through your existence. Near-death experiences, formerly seen as mere hallucinations, now provide insights. Numerous individuals who return recount a domain of awareness when their entire existence is shown to them, not via judgment, but through comprehension. Some individuals claim perceiving not only their own lives, but also the repercussions of their actions on others, resonating like echoes. This level of consciousness and panoramic perspective aligns with descriptions provided by spiritual practitioners when accessing the records. It does not constitute storytelling. It is a conveyance of memory transcending temporal boundaries. Subsequently, there exists the enigma of intuition. How does a mother perceive her child's peril from a considerable distance? How can certain individuals possess an innate awareness of impending issues before they occur? These phenomena suggest a profundity that beyond reasoning. They propose that we are already linked to an information domain significantly greater than our own existence. We are not relying on conjecture, we are drawing upon memory. Perhaps that is the most crucial aspect. The Akashic Records do not require you to adopt a new belief system. They request that you recall anything antiquated, to contemplate the possibility that the universe may not be indifferent and arbitrary, but rather aware and purposeful. Your thoughts, choices, and essence are not ephemeral instances lost to time. Rather, they constitute a living record that encompasses everything. Science has not yet advanced sufficiently, but it is progressing toward that goal. When the divide between science and spirituality ultimately diminishes, we may realize that the most profound truths were never concealed. We merely ceased searching in the appropriate location. Upon your birth, the world begins defining your identity, not with inquisitiveness, but with conviction. It provided you with an identity, a nationality, a faith, an educational framework, a collection of ideologies, and an extensive array of regulations. It elucidated the distinctions between reality imagination and the perils of contemplation. Amidst the extensive array of tacit agreements, one message emerged more prominently than the others. Disregard. Disregard your identity. Disregard your past experiences. Disregard your origins. Disregard your prior knowledge. This was intentional. This was not merely a regrettable consequence of maturation in contemporary society. It was a component of a more extensive system, a system designed to remove your ties to any source of empowerment. anything that would render you sovereign, any element that evokes the notion that your soul possesses a memory significantly more profound than your present name, occupation, or state-sanctioned identity. Individuals who possess self-awareness cannot be manipulated. Control constitutes the currency of our contemporary environment. Consequently, you were bestowed obedience rather than wonder, repetition rather than insight, rather than spiritual endeavors, academic pursuits. You were instructed to seek answers elsewhere and to distrust any internal insights. Individuals with visions were deemed creative. If you have recollections of prior lives, you were informed that these were mere fiction. If you experienced profound connections to inexplicable phenomena, you were instructed to disregard them, all while being presented with a picture of reality so superficial and mechanistic that the sacred was diminished to mere superstition or entertainment. This explains why the Akashic Records seem remote to several individuals, not due to their inaccessibility, but because your intellect has been conditioned to dismiss anything that cannot be substantiated by institutions intended to constrain you. You were informed that truth derives from authority, that knowledge must be acquired, and that wisdom is only valid if it has been peer-reviewed, monetized, or institutionalized. However, the soul does not function in that manner. The records do not either. The reality is that you have already accessed them. You simply did not refer to it as such. Instances of tremendous clarity that appeared unexpectedly. The feeling of having known someone eternally while having only recently encountered them. The intuitive sensation that rescued you. The epiphanies experienced during dreams. The nonsensical déjà vu. The inexplicable attraction to a specific location, culture, or historical era. These are not malfunctions. These are remnants of a memory you were instructed to obliterate. However, memory persists. It remains in anticipation. Amidst the clamor of daily programming, the soul retains its memories. Regardless of cultural attempts to suppress it, it discovers means to express itself. Via artistic expression, via synchronicity, through disassemblies that necessitate reconstruction, through sorrow that rends you sufficiently to genuinely experience something authentic. The act of forgetting was profound, while the act of remembering is more potent. And here lies the painful aspect. The world has never wished for you to be aware of this. A person with a strong memory poses a threat. They exhibit less compliance. They do not pursue hollow achievements. They do not assume roles they did not select. They perceive the deception, and more troublingly, they assist others in perceiving it as well. Consequently, mystics were executed by fire. The reasons for the silencing of shamans, the erasure or rebranding of the wisdom keepers within indigenous societies. It was never a matter of skepticism. It pertained to repression. However, the system is deteriorating. Fissures are developing in the foundation. An increasing number of individuals are emerging from oblivion and posing inquiries that cannot be addressed by textbooks or news broadcasters. They are perceiving a more profound significance. Once that procedure commences, it cannot be undone. Upon commencing recollection, one becomes acutely aware of the extent of forgotten memories. With each returned piece, your power is restored. You were not intended to remain oblivious. You were intended to awaken. The Akashic Records have never been concealed. You have been instructed to refrain from looking. However, you are currently observing. That alters everything. Remembrance does not entail regression. It pertains to introspection. The Akashic Records do not exist in a remote dimension overseen by mystics in elaborate garments. They reside within you, intricately woven into your essence, inscribed in the silence that exists between your thoughts. Accessing them necessitates readiness rather than ritual. It is not concerned with performance. It pertains to presence. There is no necessity for elaborate terminology, only sincere inquiries. Spiritual credentials are unnecessary. What is required is the bravery to engage in self-reflection and perceive beyond the distractions. This is the point at which the majority of individuals exhibit hesitation. They anticipate thunder visions and dramatic occurrences. However, the records seldom proclaim. They murmur. That whisper resembles your own voice, only deeper, softer, and more mature. It frequently manifests as an emotion, a fleeting insight, a startling moment of lucidity that occurs unexpectedly and dissipates rapidly if one attempts to regulate it. Access cannot be compelled. One can only establish the conditions for its emergence. These conditions are straightforward. Nonetheless, they require practiced tranquility, authenticity, and ample space. One must create room for that which has been concealed. This entails ceasing the incessant influx of stimulation, signing out and focusing within. It signifies opting for tranquility while society urges constant activity, not due to the popularity of quiet, but because it is the one environment in which truth may emerge. In silence, the spirit articulates, and its expressions frequently transcend verbalization. Commence by engaging with questions not in pursuit of answers, but for connection. What action should I take? What must I retain? Inquire about an irrational fear, an incomplete relationship, or a recurring trend. Exercise patience. Simply inquire and then be prepared to experience emotions. Occasionally, the response is instantaneous. At other times, it manifests later through a dream, a poem, or a conversation that seemed too opportune to be just chance. The record is communicating indirectly. Journaling may prove beneficial, serving as a stream of consciousness exercise that allows the rational mind to temporarily yield to the deeper voice within. Dreams may become increasingly vivid, and synchronicities may begin to proliferate. These are not arbitrary. These are indications that you are harmonizing, that your vibration is aligning with something primordial. Shadow labor is one of the most potent instruments of recall, as the primary obstacle to accessing the records is frequently not a deficiency in capability. It is evasion. We hesitate to recall due to the apprehension of what we may encounter. Excruciating decisions, lingering remorse, unresolved karmic cycles. However, the records do not reveal these matters to induce shame. They demonstrate to facilitate integration, promote healing, cease evasion of the past, and initiate progression towards potential futures. This is also the reason the process may evoke strong emotions. Accessing the records is not solely spiritual, it is also cellular. The body retains memories. Emotions may manifest as tears. Surges of sorrow or liberation may occur abruptly. Allow them. That is not your failure. You are creating space. You are not experiencing an excess of demands. You are undergoing reorganization. There is no singular route to the records. For some, it is meditation. For some, breathwork, nature, or artistic expression. Art has consistently served as a conduit as creation from the soul communicates in the language of the records, often unconsciously. Music, painting, and poetry are not mere pastimes. They represent frequencies. At times, they reveal more memories than any book ever will. A guru is unnecessary. A label is unnecessary. Honesty, curiosity, a readiness to perceive deeper emotions, and trust, specifically trust that what emerges does so for a purpose, are essential. You are not fabricating it. You are recalling what was concealed so profoundly that it started to resemble fantasy. Imagination is merely recollection refined by intuition. The Akashic Records reside in the interstice between forgotten memories and the enduring essence of your soul. Each time you recall one aspect of yourself that you believed was lost, you bridge the divide between your past identity and your destined self. Ultimately, recollection becomes into a habitual practice. Not a destination, but a condition of existence. You transform into the library. You transform into the conduit. You serve as the conduit between the visible and the invisible. At that point, you cease the pursuit of meaning and begin to embrace it. Envision a realm in which individuals cease to inquire, "Who am I?" Instead, inquire, "Who have I perpetually been?" Envision many individuals ceasing to seek value, identity, or guidance elsewhere, instead turning inward to the extensive repository of their own spiritual odyssey. Such an awareness transforms not only individuals, it alters the course of humanity. When individuals genuinely recall, they cease adhering to preordained narratives. They cease to perform duties dictated by systems intended to oppress. That is the point at which everything begins to change. The Akashic Records encompass more than merely personal healing. They pertain to communal advancement. This is not an individual journey. It is a cascading effect. An individual awakening to their soul's memory serves as a catalyst. They exhibit distinct walking and speaking patterns. They exhibit less reactivity and heightened intuition. They commence the act of creation rather than consumption. Their connections intensify. Their efforts become synchronized. They no longer seek approval to express their identities, and such freedom is infectious. For years, we have been deceived into believing that we are isolated, distinct, and in competition with one another. However, the documents present an alternative narrative. A narrative in which every individual is interconnected by an unseen network of causality, adversity, and decision-making. One individual's actions reverberate throughout that network. Healing is not a solitary process. By resolving karmic patterns within yourself, you also resolve them within your lineage. You disrupt generational cycles. You serve as the connection between the past and potentiality. When a sufficient number of individuals engage in that behavior, the system does not only yield, it collapses. This is the reason why recollection poses a challenge to power structures. Individuals who are remembered do not adhere to the same standards of obedience. They do not fear rejection, as they are not attempting to conform to anything flawed. They do not assess success by external criteria, as they understand that what is significant cannot be quantified. They commence the development of new templates for familial, professional, and communal purposes. They nurture offspring in distinct manners. They employ distinct pedagogical methods. They construct systems founded on essence rather than dominance. Gradually, nearly unnoticed, the ancient world began to disintegrate, not via conflagration and devastation, but via insignificance. It relinquishes its hold due to a diminished number of contributors. A diminishing number of individuals subscribe to the notion that worth must be merited, that veracity derives from authority. Life is a relentless pursuit of an elusive reward. Conversely, individuals commence to exist in harmony. They start to regain confidence in themselves. They commence dreaming without authorization. This communal recollection does not resemble a revolution. It resembles a homecoming, a collective exhalation, a subtle yet profound transformation in which individuals cease to perform and begin to embody. It is already occurring. It is palpable. Individuals awakening in succession, reevaluating previously held certainties, departing from employment relationships and institutions that no longer resonate. Not due to external instruction, but since their inner being conveyed, this is insufficient. There is additional information. Moreover, it is not a destination, it is a frequency. A reminder that we are not mere components in a mechanism. We are boundless entities with narratives that span galaxies and epochs. Our actions are not arbitrary. We possess agency. We are not disoriented. We are merely awakening. The Akashic Records do not serve as an evasion from reality. They serve as a guide to re-enter it with your complete self-preserved. A map designed not solely for you, but for all of us, for the community, for the potential that when a sufficient number of us recollect, the world undergoes transformation. It possesses self-recollection as well. You have been instructed throughout your life to seek answers externally, to seek veracity in literature, in authorities and customs, and in systems predating oneself. You received guidelines for existence, aspirations, and identity. Despite meticulous adherence to the map, a dissonance persisted. A persistent question lingered in your mind. Is this truly the conclusion? That question was not one of doubt. It constituted an entrance, a signal from the aspect of you that is never forgotten. The aspect remaining connected to the Akashic field, silently preserving the reality that your existence is not arbitrary, your suffering is not futile, and your purpose was never intended to be discovered in another's guidebook. The Akashic Records are readily accessible. They are not confined to obscure rites or concealed within remote temples. They reside within you, inscribed in your consciousness, poised for recollection. Recalling does not necessitate flawlessness. It does not require sainthood. It merely requires presence quiet in the resolve to cease evading oneself and to introspect softly and boldly, confronting what already exists within. The suffering, the motifs, the knowledge, the strength. Upon entering that realm, be it through meditation, quiet nature, or dreams, you are not traversing to an unfamiliar destination. You are returning, re-engaging in a dialogue your soul has sought to initiate with you from the outset. You start to recognize that your difficulties were not arbitrary. They constituted lessons. Your heartbreaks were not retributions. They constituted activations. Each loss, each worry, each moment of uncertainty serves as a clue, a breadcrumb, leading back to your own recollection. From that point, your life commences its transformation, not in grand dramatic instances, but in subtle, significant manners. Your manner of speaking, the decisions you undertake, the limits you establish, and the energy you refuse to accept. You commence traversing the world in a distinct manner, characterized not by arrogance, but by clarity and alignment. Cease pursuing affirmation from others incapable of perceiving your essence. You cease existing passively and begin to act with purpose. You come to the realization, perhaps for the first time, that your life does not require revision. It needs reclamation. Because you are not merely a human endeavoring to attain spirituality. You are a spirit recollecting the essence of humanity. That memory resides within you. No proof is required for admission. One must simply place their trust in it, embrace it, allow it to direct you to your residence. If you have reached this point, you are already aware of what others remain oblivious to. Do not halt at this point. Enroll in Insights Academy via the link below to access additional knowledge that cannot be disclosed here. A complimentary copy of the Kabbalion will be provided for a limited duration. Your narrative is incomplete. Your patterns are not definitive. Your soul remains intact. The Akashic Records do not exist for the purpose of forecasting your future. They serve to remind you that you remain the author you have always been. The forthcoming chapter awaits your authorship, grounded in complete recollection, absolute sovereignty, and unvarnished truth. If this video connected with you, please indicate by commenting, "I understood it,"